Hi, and thanks for joining me for my latest video. As you'll have seen from the title, this is something very different from any of my previous videos. 40 years ago, the remains of the body of the woman who was laid to rest in this unmarked grave here in Malton was discovered around 20 miles away between Revo Abbey and Sutton Bank. In this video, I'm going to tell the story of what is known about this woman and the investigation that followed her discovery. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, my name is Andrew and I make videos around my two favourite areas, the North York Moors National Park and the Yorkshire Heritage Coast. This case, known as the Lady of Sutton Bank and also the Nude and the Nettles, is one of Yorkshire's most mysterious and unsettling. This is the North York Moors National Park Visitor Centre at Sutton Bank, visited by thousands of people every year enjoying the bike rides and walks that begin here. Many of you watching will know of it. You'll have either been here or driven past it on the A170. Just 2 miles down the A170 is the turn-off for Revo, and where this story begins. For those of you unfamiliar with this area, this is one of the most picturesque parts not only of North Yorkshire, but the whole of the UK. Famed author James Herriot once claimed the view from Sutton Bank was the finest in England. It takes in the Vale of York and Mowbray, with the mountains and hills of the Pennines providing the backdrop, and essentially separating the east and west sides of the country. On August Bank Holiday in 1981, a woman's body was discovered unclothed right here. It was found following an anonymous phone call to police. The caller, described as well-spoken with a trace of local accent, revealed the location of the dead body.
I found a decomposed body beside the road to Scorton and Revo Abbey, not far from the A170 junction. It's lying amongst weeds on the left of the road as one drives to Scorton, very close to the entrance to Scorton Moorhouse Farm.
When asked for a name and address, the caller refused.
I can't identify myself for reasons of national security.
The call was received at 8 AM, and the words used suggested it was a crank call. However, the constable who took it, a PC John Jeffries, was directed to attend the location and investigate the report the same day. When he arrived, he found no obvious sign of a body, but he apparently then began a more meticulous search, and after some time he eventually found what he initially thought were 2 pieces of well-weathered wood. He soon realised these were actually bones, and as he dug around the deep surrounding bed of willow herbs, he found the sparse remains of a skull, convincing him he'd found the body. The CID, led by Detective Chief Superintendent Strickland Carter, was called to the area, and officers began a painstaking search to locate the rest of the body over a period of several hours. The body was eventually discovered here, just as the caller had described. Given that the remains they found were mostly skeletal and naked, with no clothes, jewellery or adornments of any kind on or around the body, it was clear it was going to be a very difficult investigation. Even at this stage, it was highly improbable that anyone could have stumbled across the remains and recognised them as human. So did the caller know they were there before he claimed to have found them? Had he placed the body there? It seemed that the caller knew far more than he had been prepared to admit. The body's advanced state of decomposition suggested it had been concealed effectively among the willow herbs for some time. A very methodical investigation of the scene began, and a huge area was cleared. Every tiny object was labelled and retained, and a forensic pathologist from Leeds was called in to examine the body in the position in which it lay. By 4:30 p.m, the entire scene had been examined and photographed. The remains of the body were now exposed, and even then they could barely be recognised as human. But they were to provide a lot of information. From the on-site examination, the forensic pathologist was able to identify that the remains were that of a woman. Residue and insect larvae which had bred within the skull told him she had been there for around 2 years. The remains were then transported to the laboratory for further investigation. Meanwhile, a decision was made to withhold publicity of the discovery. Their reason being, if it didn't appear on the evening television and radio bulletins, they felt the anonymous caller would wonder whether his call had been taken seriously and might be tempted to return to the scene or at least prompt another telephone call. Officers were concealed in the woods to record any visits to the scene, and although their all-night woodland vigil did produce some startling results in the world of illicit love affairs, it didn't produce a suspect, and the following morning the Press Association were informed. In the meantime, the microscopic examination of the scene had produced results. The lid of a jar of meat paste was found directly beneath where the body had been. The lid proved to be a significant find. It showed that the contents of the jar had been sold by the manufacturers on the 6th of October 1979 and probably discarded shortly afterwards by someone having a picnic. This area was a popular parking place for families enjoying picnics. During the day, children would have played here and parents would sit outside the cars enjoying the sunshine. Less than 5 feet away from them lay the unidentified body. Police worked on the assumption that the body had been placed here after this date, while the insect larvae told them she'd been here for about 2 years, so it seemed she'd been placed here sometime during the autumn of 1979. This date was later confirmed by a jockey who daily exercised horses. Every day he rode past the body's resting place, and during the October of 1979 he had become aware of an awful smell coming from among the willow herbs. He thought it might be the rotting carcass of a fox or another large animal, but he never investigated it, only making note in his own diary. Further information came to light after a thorough examination of the bones. The woman was between 35 and 45 years old when she died, meaning she was likely to have been born in the late 1930s. She was about 5 foot 3 inches tall and took a size 4 shoe. She was very slender and had natural dark brown hair. She'd had 2 or 3 children, and she had an abnormality of her upper spine, which would have caused her significant backache during her life. Later examination of her teeth by the Dental School of Newcastle University helped confirm her age, and also revealed that her formative years, until about the age of 7, had been spent in an area with a high degree of natural fluoride in the drinking water. Now that the police had some definite characteristics, they began their search of all records of missing women, both locally and nationally. The 2 closest towns that matched the natural fluoride clue, Hartlepool and Grimsby, were given particular attention. Children's homes were contacted in the hope that some children might have missed recent visits by their mother, and the public was asked to report the absence of any single woman they knew. One aspect affecting this locality was the number of holidaymakers who came here. Caravans, campers, bed and breakfast and hotels were all considered, with all proprietors being asked to check their registers in the hope it might jog a distant memory. But all this produced nothing, and then something dramatic and exciting turned up for the investigating team. At about the time police believed the body had been placed beside the road, they learned that a woman prisoner named Geraldine Crawley had escaped from Askham Grange Open Prison near York and had never been seen since. Her physical description matched that of the Sutton Bank body in 6 respects. Age, height, colour of hair and build were all similar. She had had children and she had had considerable trouble with her back. The police were confident they had a name for the corpse, but with such scant relics to work on, how could this be proved? The only way was to find the escaped prisoner so she could be eliminated from the inquiry. The police decided to publicise this new line of inquiry and alerted newspapers, TV and radio stations, in particular in Ireland and Northern Ireland, where she had initially come from. They issued a plea to the escaped prisoner that, if she was still alive, she should obtain a piece of white paper and imprint it with her fingerprints. No one really expected a response. If she was still alive and many people thought she was dead, why would she risk blowing her own cover to assist police? But she did. Chief Superintendent Carter received the fingerprints which matched police records, along with a friendly little note. Police now knew Crawley was alive and in Ireland, but they were back to square one in identifying the dead woman. As the weeks rolled on, dozens of false trails were presented to the investigating teams, and by November it seemed that all possible avenues of inquiry had been exhausted. Then Chief Superintendent Carter announced a unique development. Experts at the Department of Medical Illustration at Manchester University had studied the remains of the skull and felt it would be possible to create a life-size wax model of the woman's head. The makeup was done by the staff at Granada Television, and a news conference was arranged so that photographs of the model head would be widely circulated in the newspapers and on television. As far as anyone was aware, this was the first time such a model had been used by the British police in an attempt to identify a body. The publicity prompted callers which provided some new lines of inquiry, but it didn't achieve a positive identification, and that was it for several years. Over the following years, a succession of detectives and amateur sleuths pored over the evidence in an attempt to uncover who this woman was, how she died, and who might have been responsible for her death. In August 2011, on the 30th anniversary of the body being discovered, a fresh appeal was made by police, and the following year the case was reinvestigated. The body was exhumed from the grave to gather new DNA evidence and was compared to samples of families who could potentially be related to her. However, no match was found. And that brings us to the current day. As we approach the 41st anniversary of the body being discovered, the police are still hopeful that at some point the truth will be revealed. Their thought being people's lives and allegiances move on, and time can tease out information that has been closely guarded in the past. If names are put forward, police can now apply the information to their DNA forensic records for the woman. In the digital world we now live in, websites specialising in building family trees could play a part in solving this mystery. Many people will have gaps in their family tree. Do the age, description and appearance of this woman match any missing members in yours? Do you know someone who went missing in the 1970s who matches some of the details of this woman? For this video, I decided to meet with Adam Harland, who is a former detective with North Yorkshire Police and now heads up their cold case review team who look after this particular case.
This is an unusual case. It is very unusual for an individual's body to be found in the countryside, not just in North Yorkshire but anywhere in the UK, and not be identified. When you stand in this cemetery, you see around you lots of headstones with beloved daughter, loving mother of. This is a case where there's a lady in a piece of ground here who no one remembers, and everybody deserves to be remembered. We know that she's somebody's daughter. She's most probably somebody's sister, perhaps somebody's cousin, somebody's niece, and we know that perhaps on 2 or 3 occasions she's given birth. Hopefully they were live births, and there's every possibility that even today more than 40 years after her body's been found, that her children are still alive and wondered whatever happened to their mother. What we're looking for is for people to provide us with suggestions as to who this lady is. We have a rough age for her when she was found, which means that she was probably born in the 1930s. We know roughly how tall she was, which might be an indicator. We also know that probably she didn't have the richest of backgrounds. But we do know that she's got to be related to other people, and there are a lot of people now who have an interest in their family history, and it's those people perhaps who we're most interested in trying to find out about. What we do have is a DNA identity for this lady, so we can do work to establish whether or not you, say, as an individual are related to her, that she is in fact your great aunt from somewhere or other. We also have a lot of research we can do to try and eliminate people. If you've got anyone you would like to suggest, then please do. Don't be embarrassed about suggesting anyone. Please get in contact with North Yorkshire Police via the 101 system, or that you can get in contact with the Cold Case Review Unit, which is written as all the one word, at northyorkshire.police.uk, and we'll be delighted to hear from you.
And that is the present situation. After over 40 years, the name of the mystery Lady of Sutton Bank remains unknown. The identity of the mystery caller and his role is also unknown. If he was in his 40s or younger back in 1981, then it's quite possible he is still alive and obviously could be the key to solving this mystery. Even though such a long period of time has passed, somebody somewhere must know this woman's name. If still alive, the children she had will probably now be in the 60s. If you do know something, no matter how small, do get in touch. Just one clue or tip-off could see a family gaining closure, a killer condemned, and Yorkshire's strangest mystery finally laid bare. As always, I hope you've enjoyed the video, so if you have, hit the like button, drop your comments in below, and to see more of my videos around the North York moors and the Yorkshire coast, make sure you subscribe to my channel. A big thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon for the next one.